And welcome to another edition of the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Adam. Adam back in a Bruins hat. Dude, I don't know when was the last time we did a show, a month ago, but good to have you back. We've got Kevan Miller on, waiting to be brought into the show. But Adam, I just wanted to see how you were doing because it's been a while. How was the Red Sox coverage? Obviously going pretty well these days.
Yeah, team's doing really well. 10-game winning streak, so that's something to be happy about. But yeah, just a little bit of everything, Sophia. You know me.
As usual, in the summer, Adam doing it all. But joining us on the Hockey Hub for episode 81, as I mentioned, we have Kevan Miller on, former Boston Bruin. Let's bring him in right away. Let's get right to it. Kev, in Montana, where I am as well, finishing up my little vacation. So close, but not that close. Close, but far. Kevan, thanks so much for being on and being on our show.
Thanks for having me on. Good to see you guys.
It's great to see you. We've got a lot of topics to cover. Can't wait to get your thoughts on your buddy Brad Marchand and his last bit here in the NHL and winning another Stanley Cup and just some other Boston Bruins changes, so many in this offseason. So we're going to get your thoughts on that. But we want to start with the stuff you're doing since you've retired with the Bruins alumni and the Warrior for Life Fund. So let's begin there because you guys just had an event, I think 2 weekends ago now in Montana. Tell us about how that went and everything about the event.
It was awesome. It was the first time, just coincidentally that I'm living in Montana, but one of the guys, Ryan Kuraly, who I believe has been on your show, but kind of the head of the Warrior for Life Fund, has done some work up here, and a few of the guys that are still active duty have some ties up here to Montana, and so they decided to do a little bit of a destination spot for the Warrior for Life Fund, and so we just had a big event up here for the 4th of July weekend, which was awesome. We had a bunch of guys, NHL alumni guys that came up, Andrew Ference, Andrew Alberts, Mark Mowers, Ken Lisbon, a bunch of guys that came up and Sam Lafferty, current NHL guy with Chicago Blackhawks, he was here, and awesome to have him a part of it. But the event went off great. We kind of split it up this time. Instead of doing NHL alumni guys versus the NSW or Special Forces guys, we mixed the bag and put it all together. Actually had a few presenting sponsors do a draft of the NHL guys, which was pretty special. It was the first time I've ever been drafted, so I enjoyed it.
How was the game itself? How did you play? Who would you say was the MVP amongst the former NHLers?
The game was great. I usually only skate about 3 times a year, and every time it's for the Warrior for Life Fund games. So I had last time I was on the ice was back in December last year for the other Warrior for Life Fund game. Johnny Moore came out, good buddy of mine, obviously, and he was buzzing, which is no surprise. But I mean, obviously, probably Sam Lafferty was the MVP. He's still NHL ready, and he made a few of us look pretty bad. So, but we had a great time, and I think I've spoken about this before. A lot of the Special Forces and NSW guys are actually great athletes, no surprise, and even better hockey players. So the game was competitive. It was a ton of fun, and we accomplished what we were looking for out of the weekend.
Would you say you got drafted in the first round at least, or were you a bit of a lower pick, Kevan?
Well, I'll be honest with you. So Robin McGraw, he was a good friend of mine. I don't know if you guys have met him or had him on, but he's a good friend of mine, a Berkshire alum, a big donor for us. He joined the board for Warrior for Life Fund, and he's a great friend of mine. And I think he was one of the presenting sponsors coaches. So he was coaching, and he donated a little bit extra money to get the first overall pick, and I was drafted first overall. So I got my jersey put on. I was able to take a good pick, and heck, I even got behind the mic for a second. It was great.
You know what? It shows your humility. You didn't even have to give us a backstory about him coming on and donating and being on the board. You could have just said I went first overall. But sure enough, you give us the backstory.
I had it. You guys would have known there was something fishy going on if I'm getting drafted first overall without paying for it. So it was great.
You've been a part of the Warrior for Life Fund, for some time. Why was it important to you to get involved?
I've been involved with a number of military organizations, 501cs, and there's a number of them that I truly love being a part of. Operation Hattrick, Fisher House, Boston. There's a SEAL Legacy Foundation. There's a ton of them. Got interested in that and a part of it while I was still playing. And this one just hits really close to home for me because obviously the hockey tie, but getting in the locker room with the guys. And we have so many questions for all these guys who serve and either active duty or retired. And they have so many questions for us. And so it's just it's a wholesome environment, and we get to do something we love to do, and also give back to a community that we really love and support. So it's something that I really love being a part of, and I think a lot of the guys that have been a part of it, the NHL alumni guys who get to be around these guys and see the benefits right away. I mean, you're seeing it in real time. So it's been a lot of fun.
And I just wanted to ask about those benefits. It raises money to help those families who have served to transition back into life in whatever way they see fit. Is that right? Like being part of the community, or if they need ramps, for example, is that kind of where the Warrior for Life Fund steps in?
There's a multifaceted, to be honest with you. The biggest thing I think they started this with is getting guys, the NSW community specifically, SEALs and their families to start playing hockey. Getting ice time for them, gear, and getting them involved in hockey because of the therapeutic response for it. So you get on the ice, you forget about some of the things that are going on off the ice for 2 hours while you get to play with your buddies. And that was the kind of the initial point of doing this, and then it's transition. And in Virginia Beach, they have a performance center now that we just opened here last year, where they do some mental cognitive training, they do some physical therapy for guys and their families. So it's not just the SEALs, it's not just the active duty guys, it's retired guys, it's their families, it's guys who are going through things. And now they're branching out. We branched out this year. We brought some special forces guys in, whether it be Army, Navy, or Army and Marine, or whatever it may be. The Army Special Forces Trust is one of the presenting sponsors as well. So we brought a different group of guys in, and I think we're just kind of spreading that out a little bit. So, but yeah, I mean, we do the sled hockey, which is great. The adaptive hockey for those who may not be able to participate in the actual game, and then the rink at Virginia Beach now is equipped with a ramp in order for people in wheelchairs to get in, and so it's a broad net, to be honest with you.
And earlier in the interview, Kevan, you mentioned Ryan Kuraly, who was on our show last year before the 2011 reunion to benefit the Warrior for Life Fund, the Nate Hardy game, which took place at Warrior Ice Arena, where we saw a number of, most of the 2011 Stanley Cup champion Bruins take the ice together once again. You were in the organization at the time, and you took part in the game. Obviously, seeing all of those teammates from back in the day brought back a lot of great memories. What was the experience like for you?
It was awesome. I think it was I think it was a shock a little bit to Frank and those guys when they initially were like, okay, yeah, you're going to get these guys back and this, that, and the other, but didn't expect the turnout that we had, and which was great. I made phone calls to each one of these guys, and it was a resounding yes, I'm in. And so when that became a reality, a lot of these guys I was fortunate to play with, and some of them I didn't get to play with. So I think a little bit of the feedback was, hey, we're missing some guys from the 2011 team. That's I was kind of joking with you guys before, but my hope is to get as many as I can here for the one coming either this December or January. And at that point, I'm hoping to be a healthy scratch or coaching from behind the bench. So it'll be cool to get as many guys as I can back playing together. And I think it's just it's a special group that won in 2011, and they're such a cool bond and relationship with those guys that it's infectious to be around. I can tell you that when I came in 2013, like most of the guys were still there, and you could just feel the relationships in the room and how close they were. So it's just cool to be around, and I enjoyed playing with every one of them.
Kev, I'd love to get your thoughts on some hockey stuff going on, but I definitely want to give you a chance in case we miss anything that you'd like us to kind of give a punchline for the Warrior for Life Fund or any other events. I definitely don't want to sleep on any important details, but is there anything else you feel like the audience or public needs to know, or what they could do to help support and then maybe we can transition to hockey talk.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have a game coming up. We do one in San Diego every year. That one's coming up August 15th for the West Coast Seals, and a lot of those guys, the Anaheim Ducks have been getting involved, which is great. I really appreciate that. So a lot of the guys and alumni guys living out in California are going to get a part of that. And then obviously we'll do the big one with the Bruins alumni here either December or January this coming year. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll do it at the Garden with a big group. And but I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too early, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we just appreciate the support. You can go to warriorforlifefund.org and check that out. But yeah, no, there's some great work going on. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and so speaking of one of those Bruins alumni, Zdeno Chara, before we get into some of the current NHL talk. By the way, Big Z going into the Hall of Fame, former teammate of yours, and then taking part. And I'm sure you've been keeping tabs on his marathons and his triathlons, and he just completed one of the toughest triathlons in Europe. There he is, right there. Barely sweating. What are your thoughts on his post-career endeavors?
Yeah, I mean, to anybody who really knows him, this isn't surprising by any means. Like, it's just Big Z being Big Z. And I'd sent him a text when he got the Hall of Fame announcement. That's, again, no surprise. Like, it's just, it was an already foregone conclusion. That guy's one in a million, just a great person. Great teammate. Love staying in touch with him. Love seeing the adventures that he's going on, and it's no surprise that he's killing it in this regard. He'll be well into his 60s still doing this stuff. I guarantee you that. So.
Yeah, congrats to Big Z. Like you said, no surprise to the people who knew him, but still doing so much at his age. Kevan, I know when you retired, and we had a great feature on you on Nesson, but just like Brad and even Big Z were talking about, when they retire, they transition a little bit more into being more present at home, being a dad, and you've got 2 young kids, and just being able to do that. So I don't know how much you're watching hockey after you retired, but do you ever sit down and catch some games, or is it only if something big is going on?
No, I sure do. Yeah, I enjoy watching it. Yeah, I was hockey fan first before player. So I still enjoy watching the game. It's kind of interesting. This will probably segue for you, but found myself, rooting for the Panthers and the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is like totally counter to my soul, to be honest with you. But it's cool to see guys you played with still going at it, obviously, and Bruins fan first, but still pulling for your buddies, and I definitely watch the games and follow along as much as I can.
All right. So yeah, great segue. It's like you're in TV or something. With Brad, obviously the Bruins are in this, retool as they put it, and all the moves that were made at the deadline and all of those familiar faces, some of the really core players of the Bruins no longer wearing a Bees sweater. Let's start with Brad Marchand. What was your reaction when he was not only traded, Kevan, but to your point, traded to the Florida Panthers?
Yeah, it was if I was a betting man, I would have said no chance. But this is hockey. It's a business. This is as clear as it can be regarding that. And I think I was, as everybody else was, pretty bummed when that happened, but I understand it. And, obviously, I think they did the right thing by sending him to a team that, is competing for a Stanley Cup. And I think that was a good conversation between Brad and Sweens and them. And so good on them to do that. And I think that that's much appreciated from Brad that he ended up there. And obviously, I'm super happy for him, just being his good buddy. And so, being back and forth with him about that was pretty funny. Asking him all these questions about, how was it stepping in the room the first time, but awesome to see him win. He was playoff Marshy was in full effect. I'm pulling for him in every way I can. And it was a little bit the same with Carlo, like one of my really good buddies, Carlo, going to Toronto, and, instantly overnight became a Leafs fan. So it was just both of those were a little bit Not expected, but here we are today. So.
I'm just ingesting this quick story out of nowhere, but you mentioned Brandon Carlo, and I just want to say, Adam, I don't know if you know this, but some of my favorite memories, I think it was just 2 years into the job, and I came in at the end of 2019, so COVID obviously hit in 2020, and everything was social distancing, so we couldn't really hang out. But Brandon Carlo and Kevan Miller, you guys weren't playing. You guys were recovering from injuries, and you're sitting on, I don't even know where. I don't think it was the 9th floor, because I was on the 9th floor, wherever. We were in the garden. But Brandon Carlo would message me, Adam, when he was with Kevin, and I would have live hits, and they would dare me to throw in certain words. Do you remember, like shenanigans or banana or something?
Funny.
Do you remember?
So funny.
And they
you
would
did
be like,
well.
okay.
There were a couple times where you got it pretty good.
Yeah, I did. I think I said there was one that I was rolling on the floor laughing right after the hit, and I think Brendan messaged me and said, like, that was unbelievable. I don't know what the word was. It could have been shenanigans, but yeah, so they would throw in a word at him, and then I would have to throw it in live in the hit. I didn't always, but that's how we kept ourselves entertained, and I really appreciate you guys for making my job a little more fun too. It was a good time.
Well, like seriously impressive, because if you're trying to think about that while doing a live interview and keep a straight face to throw in a word like shenanigans, that is true skill. So we were very we weren't easy on the verbiage, and it got harder as time went on. So it definitely kept us busy.
There was one, and I'll get off this, but we had to do our interviews via Zoom. So just kind of like this, where, we couldn't, you remember, obviously we couldn't interview you guys. So we had to do them via Zoom with the whole media. And I think Brandon's like, try to get in the sentence right, meow. And I couldn't find a way to do it, but he was actually at the podium. So I guess he had asked, and then I didn't do it that game, but he was at the podium in the next game. And I did say something like, I think he was coming back from injury. I'm like, how are you feeling, right, meow? And he tried to keep a straight face at the podium. And I was like, yeah, I lost it, and I lost it behind the camera. And anyway, those were good times. And I miss you guys for sure, but I can see why you're rooting for Brando, because you said he was a good buddy. Or between the two of them when they were facing each other, that must have been a hard one. But I guess the better team did advance. Okay, I can keep talking about that. I'll transition to a Marchand question. You talk about Zdeno Chara. No surprise what he's doing. Were you surprised at all at how impactful Brad was in the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Oh man, no, I not one bit. And then it's kind of funny because Marshy's usually first line. He's playing against the first pair D, first line on the other team. And nothing against the guys on the other side, but he was playing third line, and so you take a guy that's for the past 10 years been playing against the best players every night, and now he's playing against some of the third and fourth line guys and some of the third pair D, and you just some people don't take that into account. That man, he just flourished. I don't think it would have been a problem if he's playing against the first line guys, but I think it just added to his ability to score and make plays, and when you got a guy like Brad Marchand, on the third line, it just shows you how deep a team like the Panthers are, and it was fun to watch. But I kept telling everybody, like, hey, playoff Marshy, when that guy gets when he gets going, look out. So, and that was kind of clear. So no surprise to me.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, with free agency and everything that goes along with it, the word dynasty isn't really thrown around too much, but the Panthers are probably as close as you'll get in today's day and age at having a dynasty. What's impressed you about, as somebody who played the game and as somebody who's a fan of the game, what's impressed you the most about the Panthers?
Well, I think, and they talk about this, they're kind of open about it, where, we talked about it in the Bruins, is that, hey, we had this culture that was, driven by a number of guys that were there, Big Z, Patrice, Krejci, like Brad, and all these guys that came through. But they're pretty open about it, that the culture down in Florida is something that's really, it's a winning culture. It's infectious. It's guys want to be a part of that. You see these guys are signing before they're getting free agency to find out even what the money's worth, because they don't want to leave. They want to be a part of that winning culture. I think Kachuk even openly said this is a dynasty, and I can't disagree with them, because I mean, if you're putting money on who the betting favorite is for the next couple of years to win the Stanley Cup, it's the Panthers. And it's fun to watch. Really weird to say as a Bruins fan, but still, I think those guys they've leaned into each other, and they've done a really good job of creating that culture and a winning atmosphere.
And listen, I'm just because we're talking about culture so much, we can transition back, Adam, if you want, to the Stanley Cup final. But I just want to ask you about because we talk about it so much here with the Bruins. And I remember when I first joined the team and I heard about the reputation of the Boston Bruins from Toronto, and I was like, okay, like how great can it be? And then I was like, wow, this is amazing. It was very, very different than covering the Toronto Maple Leafs in all facets. And I loved it so much. And so there's talk about how that kind of shifted this year. A little bit of that was lost, and how one of Marco Sturm's and the next captain, whoever that's going to be, their big job is to make sure they keep that alive and well. I'm going to throw out some words that I felt I noticed, but I obviously wasn't a player, but like accountability, work ethic, respect, those were really big cogs in the culture. Can you dive into what made the Boston Bruins what they have been for so long culture-wise in the room? Like what other things, what other words or characteristics would you use to describe the Bruins when they were rolling?
Yeah, well, I think just kind of first and foremost that comes top down, whether that's ownership, President Cam and Sweeney, they kind of set the mark on that. Over the years, they've been so good at identifying players that are going to fit the Bruins culture. And they've done a phenomenal job in that regard, bringing in guys who are going to add to that. And I don't think that they changed that at all, but I do think it just, you lose guys like, Big Z, and then Patrice and Krejci, and then Brad. And it's just, these guys had been there for so long. It's not an overnight transition to say, hey, here's the reins to whoever, and we're going to continue what's going on. It's something that's built over time. And, they've invested over the past, 10 years, more than that, to be a winning program. And they sent off a lot of draft picks. They sent off a lot of assets to try and win. And credit to them. I give them all the credit in the world. They tried so hard for so long to win, and we were so damn close a few times that, but there has to be like some kind of transition at one point when some of these guys leave. And I think I saw a little bit of that this year. And, I know talking to Brad, he did everything he could to pull that together. And I think he did a phenomenal job as captain. He was a no-brainer to be the captain, but it takes a group to be a part of that. I know Pasta's done a good job at that as well. And he was around a lot of that when I was there, obviously to transition that, but it's more than a few guys to pull on the rope. And I think they're in the position now to reestablish that. I think that, Marco Sturm is going to do a great job in that regard, because he did that in Ontario and he developed guys and they had a culture there. And so everything that I've heard is that he's going to do a great job in that regard and pull the group back together. And then I think that a lot of those conversations are probably happening right now, as guys are back on the ice and tooling up for training camp. And I think the leadership group's probably going through a lot of that stuff right now, is that, hey, how are we going to, put our foot back in the sand here and say, all right, we're turning the ship in the right direction. So, I'm pulling for him in every way I can, but I think, when you lose guys like Patrice and Z, and Krejci and Brad, it's tough to just turn the page overnight. So.
You mentioned Marco Sturm, Kevin. As a player, what's the most important quality that you want in your head coach?
Communication, I think. Some coaches are better at it than others, or have different versions of communication, and some guys, take it in different ways. But a coach that is going to be honest with you and communicate with you is first, where you're very clear what your job and your role is. There's no beating around the bush. There's no telling you one thing and doing another. And I think, just from what I've heard, he's great at that. He's great at communicating with players. He's great at developing young talent. And so, I think he's going to do a phenomenal job. He's a younger guy as well, and he's been in the league just 10 years ago or so. I mean, so I think he's going to do a phenomenal job. And I think that you want coaches that are going to be honest with you. And so I see them doing a pretty good job with that this year.
When you were with the Boston Bruins, you guys missed, obviously you guys went through so many rides, but one of them was a lower stretch where you missed the postseason in 2015 and 16. So going into the following year after that, what were I don't know if it's characteristics again, I'm probably using the wrong word. Obviously, the NHL, there's so much parity, so there's skill across the board. So maybe what were some of the changes made that were able to get you guys back into a postseason after missing it?
We had that year we had a ton of injuries going into that kind of stretch towards the end there, and I think that we had some transition of guys going out and guys coming in, and we were so I think we missed it by like 1 point or something like that. We knew we had the skill in the room to not just get into the postseason, but make a run. So it wasn't like we're freaking out because we didn't make the playoffs. It was, okay, we really need to, dial in here a few areas and get back to our Bruins way of hockey. And I think the next year we were right back at it. So it wasn't like I think we were in a different situation than they are right now. They talk about retool. They have so many young talent. So many young talent players that are coming in. They signed some guys for free agency, and so I think it's going to be really important for them to get off to a good start. And like I said, I think they probably I'm just spitballing here. They probably are diving in really hard here on having a really good training camp and getting guys all on the same page to pull on the rope early. So.
Yeah, and actually that's something that they had talked about over the course of the season was how disjointed the training camp was last year between some of the injuries they had, some of the uncertainty with contract situations. And so getting out of the gate, how important is it to have a good training camp to set yourself up for success to start the season?
It's huge. You want to get off to a really good start. And historically, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's like something crazy. Like the team that's the top 8 teams that are in the playoffs come like November 15th or something like that are almost like 85% chance of making it to the playoffs. So the first part
it's the Thanksgiving rule. It's usually the Thanksgiving rule, right?
Pretty much. And so that's not that's there for a reason. I think and teams are really wanting to get off to a good start, and so when you see it last year, there was just some things in the background going on that it whether people believe it or not, it does weigh on guys. It weighs on the room. You feel different in the room, and just if you're off by 0.5% or 1% here, it just those are points that you want and need to get at that time of the year. And so, we say, we got plenty of season left. Well, no, you really don't. Every game counts, and you really want to get off to a good start. So I think they're probably going to put a heavy emphasis on making sure everybody's there early, a part of what's going on with the captain skates, getting the culture right, having those big meetings together, and then being ready to go when the puck drops.
I want to transition quick to youth on the team. James Higgins drafted by the Boston Bruins, first round, 7th pick, going to BC. A lot of the discussion with the guests we've had on the show is, should he do the year? Not our choice, obviously, but should he do the year? Would it be beneficial to come up a little bit? What's your take on this still very young, but hopefully going to be very impactful in the NHL player for the Boston Bruins? Would you even toy with seeing him on some NHL ice, or just let him focus on college hockey?
I think it's awesome, and Swings and the Bruins have done a good job of drafting guys that are just right in their backyard, which is, I think it's really valuable to have that, where they can go over and have communication with them after a game at BC, and as you can probably see, we've had a number of guys from BC come through and do really good things. So I think it's up to the organization and how this player is, how he is between the years. Is he grown up enough to really come in and transition from a college game to a pro game and add that many games. And, with the game going, it's so fast and so physical and so skilled now that it's one of those things where you really want to make sure that he's ready before you put him in the lineup, because it can snowball and go the other way. And so those are, I'm sure they're having those conversations right now where they're, hey, is he ready, or is it better to have him another year? And I would say, personally, I was late, right? So very late. I wasn't even close to his age to look at the NHL. So, but I think they'll make the right decision. I think he's from all accounts, a great player, good person, and he's in the great spot to do some good things, whether it's at BC or coming right in and contributing. So we'll kind of see. We'll leave that up to the pros with Swings and Cam and those guys to sort it out.
I did want to ask you about, one of the moves in free agency in particular that the Bruins made, signing Tanner Jeannot to the 5-year deal. Obviously somebody who's very physical. Your style of play was very physical as a defenseman. Obviously he plays the forward position, but how important is it to have a guy like that on the roster that can sort of, stand up for some of those skill players?
I don't know much about him. I know a little bit, watched him a few times, but I can just say that if you look at the Stanley Cup teams over the past 10 years, they had guys like this. They had a number of guys like this. They leaned heavily on those guys. They were big role players come down the stretch. He's great. He's not going to score you 20 goals in the regular season. That's fine, because I promise you, when playoffs come around, they're going to be loving that guy for every minute and every hit, every block shot, every leaning on this guy or the other. That he's so valuable. And I think it was a great signing. They've got a few of those guys now. Obviously, you see Freddie leave, which was tough, and I think he fills that void a little bit. And it'll be interesting to see kind of where they put him in the lineup. But I think it was a great sign. I think he'll help a ton. I think he's been around the league here for a little bit now, and he can be a guy that can go into the room and be a leader and have some voice in there. And he's now going to feel comfortable that he's going to be there for some time, and so he could put some roots down and really kind of lean into the Bruins' way. So he seems to fit the bill. Like I said, they've done a good job bringing in guys like that in the past, and I think he'll fit in just great.
How much truth is there to something that Don Sweeney said in his press conferences is like, and we know when Bruce Cassidy was around too, that was a really big message, but it was like this internal competition, and guys in the A could be called up at any point. Your roster spot's not safe. Maybe that's not, great, but you do want to create at least that there's this day in and day out, or game in and game out, you're playing with pride and knowing that you've got to be your best. And they have a lot of guys that will be in training camp fighting for positions. How much truth is there to that, to making a team better when that's the case?
Oh, a lot. I think there's a lot to that. And I would argue it's even healthier to have more of that. And to be honest with guys, to say, hey, it's not, watch your back, but it's just, you need to show up every day. You need to put the work in every day. And if there's more, I think if there's more of that, I promise you your training camp's going to be better. Because those guys are going to be laying it on the line every single day. They're going to go out there. They know they got eyes on them every single day. And so I think it will help them a lot. And they'll be more game ready come time when it's the real puck getting dropped, and you're not in preseason, you're not playing against each other anymore. And the more of that, the better. They've preached that in the past, and it's tough to do when you have a really veteran lineup. But those guys that are really veteran lineup, they understand that they need to make sure they're ready when the puck drops. So it's just a little bit different dynamic, but this year will be awesome to watch, as those guys are all going to be putting their best foot forward. And they better, because if you're not, then the guy right behind you is probably going to take your spot. So those things are always healthy. I think, I know Butchie preached that a lot when I was there, and same with Claude. But yeah, I think it'll help them a lot.
Well, you've been there, done that, man, and we really appreciate your perspective. Also appreciate, just your time here on the Hockey Hub. Your first episode, maybe the first of, many. I don't know. Maybe we'll have you back. It'd be
I'd
great.
like to have you on again. Yeah, I'd have you back.
No, I appreciate it. So I made the cut. No, it was great to connect with you guys. Obviously, good to see Sophia and great to see you guys. Like, I appreciate you having me on. It's fun to talk this stuff. I enjoy it. So, and then obviously thanks for supporting the Warrior for Life Fund and having us on to talk about that.
Absolutely, and
Kevin,
look forward to talking more about. Look forward to talking more about the event coming up in Boston towards the end of the year. So we'll have you on before that. That'll be a lot of fun. So former Bruins defenseman Kevan Miller. Yeah, go ahead.
Frank has been the key kind of, Frank Simonetti. He's been the guy that's driving the bus on that, and he's been awesome. So I mean, he can speak about it better than anybody. But yeah, he's been a huge not addition obviously, but a guy that's driven the bus for us for a while. But we're happy to be on and happy to talk about it. And thanks again for having me on.
Awesome. Kevan Miller, former Boston Bruins defenseman here on the Hockey Hub. Kevin's going to step aside, but Sophia and I will be back right after this.
Welcome back to the Hockey Hub. Sophia and Adam here with you. We just had former Bruins defenseman Kevan Miller on for a good chunk of the show, part of the Warrior for Life Fund. We discussed his experience with the Bruins and the leadership and where he sees his team going. A great interview, as we saw, Adam, but something I wanted to just bring up again. I wanted to say it before we said goodbye, but not knowing his schedule, I wanted to let him go instead of drag it out. But something we discussed was, so when it was COVID and TV was slow and everything was slow, Brandon Carlo and Kevan Miller would give me words to throw into the broadcast, like tough words. And I remember two with Kevin. One was right meow, the other was shenanigans, but I remember one was bananas. And I was thinking, like, how do I get bananas in the show? And I remember, which I'll bring up our lovely producer, Brian Zaccello. I remember doing a hit about, I think Jake DeBrusk hadn't scored in a really long time, and he'd finally gotten a goal, and we were talking about it, and I threw in that, like, Jake DeBrusk scored, had a great celly, and the team went bananas. And I was after that, then I was like, back to you, Jack and Brick, that my producer was like, or Z was like, is something going on? Because he was like, you've been throwing in really weird words, like, who's doing your script? And he's like, where did bananas? And I told him what was happening, and he got a kick out of it. I think all of us were trying to find a little joy in the COVID times, but those were some of my favorite memories. And couldn't really see the guys, but they'd always message me and say that put a smile on their face when they threw out the words. So anyway, we had fun with that.
Challenge accepted. I love it. I did something similar on a show that we had on Nesson called After Hours after the great Eddie Van Halen passed away, a great guitarist of the group Van Halen, obviously. I had thrown in, it was an hour show, I had thrown in song titles to Van Halen songs. I weaved them in throughout the show, and I think I was able to get like 20 to 25 songs in the hour show.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Like in a sentence, like you'd use it in a sentence.
Yeah, like like there's a song, Jump, right? I was able to do that pretty easily. You can throw that in anywhere when you talk about sports, or Ain't Talking About Love. I think maybe there was some sort of conflict in a game, and I was like, I ain't talking about love right here. As these two guys go, right? So it was kind of that type of thing. So that was a lot of fun.
I love it. We got to, sometimes we just got to throw some life into the job. And obviously it's like super fun as it is, but those were good times. And maybe I'll challenge you with a couple of words when you're doing Bruins Ringside this year. You can give me some back if you want to.
All right. I love it. Challenge accepted.
Okay. We'll do a little side bet. So as we were on with Kevin, we just saw breaking news that the Bruins did they did release their home opener. The official schedule, from what I understand, is going to be for the season for all teams is going to be released around 1 p.m. Eastern. So it's not going to make our show, but right now the home opener is set, and that's going to be against the Chicago Blackhawks at the Garden, of course, Thursday, October 9th. I was trying to look it up and I didn't. I don't know if it was last year or 2 seasons ago, but they also had their season opener against the Chicago Blackhawks.
That's 2 years ago. Yep.
It was 2 years ago? Okay.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
I think it was Connor Bedard's first game.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he scored in that one. I remember something like, I think behind the net even, or was trying to do a wraparound, somehow tucked it in. If I'm correct, I don't know. But it'll be good to see Bedard again. And you want to talk about this one, or maybe highlight some games that we don't know when are happening, but we know will happen that you're looking forward to?
Well, I'll take your home opener and raise you the season opener, which will be the night before against Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals and our nation's capital.
Okay, so starting
how about
on the
a back-to-back right out of the gate, huh?
Yeah, a back-to-back on the road. Not only back-to-back, but back-to-back, and then you got to do a little road trip. Oh, Steve Conroy, the lovely Steve Conroy. Bruins kick off the season with a back-to-back in Washington on October 8th against Chicago on the 9th. I don't hate it. I mean, let's get one of those back-to-backs out of the way when the guys are rested. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Last year obviously was the opener was against the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champs. And, you came back home, and your home opener last year, I believe, was against the Canadiens, which was not a back-to-back. But it was a national TV tilt to kick off the season 2 straight years. Obviously, the broadcast schedule doesn't come out until a little bit later. So the NHL schedule will be released in full later this afternoon, which obviously includes the Bruins schedule. But the broadcast schedule isn't released until later. So we're not sure, which of those games we'll be doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
We're not sure. And we have to wait till like September, I think. But either way, you mentioned Ovi. So first game for the Boston Bruins. Just watching him last season, that was so fun. And I know I don't think it was overdone. Like that was huge. That was just huge, him chasing the record and then eventually beating it. But he's one of my favorite players in the entire world. And I think always will be. I love Sidney Crosby as well. I love Ovi so much. And I think watching him, maybe against Crosby, but just watching him, maybe not as closely as I did last year with all the goal scoring, but I don't know how much time he has left. I think he has a year left. I think this is his final contract. I can definitely see him signing for a couple more if he wants to, maybe a 2-year, maybe even 3 if he feels like he can do what Brad Marchand is doing. But either way, this is in the sunset window of his career. So I'm looking forward to big matchups against Alex Ovechkin and Crosby. Obviously when Florida's back in town, or the first time they face each other, but more importantly, when Brad Marchand's back in town, circling that one, whenever that is. What big ones are you circling when they come out?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? I mean, that has to be the one, with Brad Marchand coming back to Boston for the first time. The Bruins did play the Panthers, if you remember, last year after he was traded, but Marchand wasn't playing in that game, and so we didn't get to see the matchup. Now we will, presumably. And so that's the one that I'm circling. Obviously, you're looking at all the trades the Bruins made last year. They didn't get to see any of their former teammates last year after the deadline. So that includes Brandon Carlo in Toronto. Charlie Coyle was in Colorado, is now in Columbus. So you have to wait to see that one as well. And Trent Frederick, he signed a multi-year extension in Edmonton. So you're going to see Freddie for the first time as an Oiler as well. So there's all of those different, former Bruins that are going to be coming to Boston, which will be, it'll be good theater for sure.
Yeah, no, and then whatever the Bruins are going to do organization-wise for videos and tributes, and I can sense there will be a lot of emotion. Yeah, Brad, when that game was set, I think it was like a Monday, so it was a couple days after the trade deadline, but he was on the 3rd floor, and nobody, so the 3rd floor at the Garden, for those who don't know, that's where the benches are, the rooms are, but he was like in the back hallway, and no one was more popular. And he was like, I remember getting a minute to talk to him, but he was still in the whirlwind. I don't think, like, him and Katrina were both there, his wife, and he's still in the whirlwind of the trade and like what to make of it. So it's going to be a completely different reunion now that he's got another Stanley Cup ring. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Like, I see him scoring against the Bruins 100%.
Yeah.
Don't you? Like, that always happens.
Well, his teammates are going to try like hell to get him the puck and do just that, right? I mean, no question.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's going to be an emotional night at the Garden that first time. And honestly, it's going to be like that the second time, too, that he visits the Garden, because this is obviously somebody who's a pillar of the organization, such an important part of the organization, and everybody was rooting for him. Every Bruins fan was rooting for him to win the cup. Not maybe necessarily rooting for the Panthers team per se, but for Brad Marchand as the individual, no question. So it's going to be emotional. It's going to be, and we will have extensive coverage that night, Sophia. I'll tell you that.
Well, we better. I bet you Nashville's going to try to take it, but whatever. I mean, we'll be doing stuff. We'll do our best. I anticipate if he does, the Garden, everyone's going to go crazy. Like, people are going to, it's going to be just as loud as if the Bruins scored. Maybe no song and no goal horn, but I can see the fans. That would be weird. I can see the fans kind of going crazy. There's one more game to highlight that we know is happening. That's the Stadium Series in Tampa. What do you think about a little outdoor Stadium Florida series for hockey? I know that they did this in, where was it, Lake Como, I think, in California.
The Bruins did in Tahoe.
Sorry, what? Yeah. They didn't go to Italy, did they? Am I missing something?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. No, that was awesome, and that was the whole Barbie girl thing with David Pastrnak, right? Because they all came up dressed in their '80s gear and the Barbie girl stuff. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. This one will be great against the Lightning at Raymond James Stadium, home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and a lot of exciting things to look forward to next year, and even outside the NHL schedule, you're talking about the Olympics as well, right? So there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of great hockey next year.
Yeah, there's going to be a big 3-week break. So, I mean, we had the Four Nations, so we kind of saw what the schedule might look like, a little bit more condensed there, but I anticipate some more back-to-backs or 4 games in a week kind of thing. But whatever, we're not going to know on this show, but guys, at 1:00 Eastern, apparently the full Bruins schedule is going to be coming out, so you'll be able to see when Brad Marchand and Brandon Carlo and Coyle are back in town, as well as a few others. Adam, we've got to pay some bills, so we're going to send it to commercial. We're going to be back right after this.
All right, welcome back to Hockey Hub. Adam and Sophia back with you. And, I think everybody's heart sort of skipped a beat when they saw the Bruins social media account, X, had posted Bruins trade or trade alert. And we're like, what's going on? Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, good one, Bruins social media team. You got us. Sean Kuraly and Andrew Peak. Yeah, we're calling you out by name. Sean Kuraly will be wearing his number 52 that he wore during his first tour with the Bruins. Andrew Peak, who wore number 52, will now wear number 26. And so usually there's some sort of compensation that goes along with that. So it'll be interesting to hear from Andrew Peak and Sean Kuraly in terms of what the terms of the deal were.
Yeah, that will be my first order of business in training camp. Forget James Higgins, forget Matty Poitras. I need to find out what's going on with the jersey numbers. Adam, I don't think we have a lot of time for this segment. I'm going to pivot really quick. I didn't get your thoughts on Sean Kuraly coming back, because we've had Casey co-hosting the show. So give us a quick Adam hot take on that.
Sean Kuraly, like Kevan Miller, who we had on earlier, a fan favorite, somebody who has obviously a history in Boston, physical style of play, scored a big goal in the playoffs. Great to have him back. And we've talked so much about, trying to, not necessarily rebuild the Bruins culture, but sort of add, character guys into the room to help maintain it and get it back to the level that it was when we talked about Bergeron, Marchand, and Chara and all that. Sean Kuraly is certainly a piece that can help do that.
Yeah, no, I'm pumped to have him back. And, to all the point that Kevin said, not that Kuraly's job is on the line, but there's a lot of guys in that bottom 6 role that are looking for spots. And I think he can help some of the younger guys with that. And that's part of what's so important. Even when he mentioned Tanner Jeannot, it's like at the beginning, some Bruins fans are like, what is this signing? But you're going to be really happy. There's so much you don't see behind the scenes. And then when you do make the postseason, you're going to be really happy. And Sean Kuraly also was great in the postseason. And I just think this is a good signing overall. Character, skill, obviously, and what he's able to do for the younger guys coming up, which is one of those big reasons. But I'll find out about the terms. Okay. About the jersey.
Okay. Fair enough.
We're going to send it to break, and we'll be back to wrap up the show right after this. Welcome back. Something we've been trying to do, Adam, for a couple of weeks on this podcast, but we always talk too much and then we run out of room, is something called the Mailbag. And that's when we take comments or questions from fans who watch the pod. Thank you so much. We love you. And we discuss. So we don't have much time. I'm getting right into it. This one coming from It's all going to hell. Or it's all gone to hell, rather. Okay, so this one is a comment, and they say they have no identity, they being the Bruins, by the look of the lineup. Hopefully they can punch their way into a playoff spot. Adam, give me your reaction.
Well, I mean, shout out to the Twitter handle. I don't know if that's something that was created because of their thoughts on the Bruins, if it has anything to do with the Bruins or whatever it is. But yeah, it's certainly attention getting. All right. Secondly, yeah, I mean, I think that, we had Kevan Miller on earlier in the show. We talked about, some of the new faces on the roster. We talked about training camp and how important it is to sort of set the tone, right? You have a new head coach in Marco Sturm. You have some new players on the roster. Obviously, there's been a culture shift because of the guys that were traded at the deadline last year and some of the other guys in Bergeron and Char and Krejci that you've lost over the years. And so now you're left to sort of rebuild that a little bit. That's not to say you don't have guys in the room who have been there, done that. You certainly do. This is not like a rebuild. It's a retool, right? Because you're not ripping it down to the studs. You have David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman, Hampus Lindholm. You brought in guys like Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm last year who are veterans. So you have veterans in the room that can help establish that identity and help bring the new guys and the young guys along. So I would say, yeah, they don't have an identity yet because we're not at training camp yet. We're not at preseason yet. The schedule's coming out today. You have a new head coach. So that's something that's going to develop over time.
Yeah, and that identity, I think, is going to be set really early on in training camp, which, of course, we'll all have the coverage for you guys. Listen, we really got to go. Thanks for joining us. Schedule's coming out at 1 o'clock Eastern. We'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend, everyone.